Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another episode to my Shock to the Past series. For those of you who don't know what this series is, you might be new to my channel. This is a series where I talk about films in the 60s, 70s and 80s that shocked audiences back then and how they shape up by today's standards. So today we're going to be going to 1982 for a film from America, which was directed by Gary Sherman, and this is a movie called Dead and Buried. So Dead and Buried is a very peculiar zombie movie. This is a film that is very atmospheric, and it's a movie that really went under my radar. As far as 80s horror, you do have all the classics, but as far as Dead and Buried is concerned, I kind of heard about it, but I never really had the intention to go out there and see it. I didn't have any real desire, it just flew under the radar for such a long time. But then I saw the trailer, I saw a few people talking about it recently, and I thought, well, why not give it a shot? It actually could surprise me, and I will say this movie definitely did surprise me. Now, to me, real horror is the anticipation of something really bad happening. To me, there is a difference between shock and actual scare. Shock is something where you see an act of violence and you're repulsed. You kind of go back and you think, okay, I didn't really want to see that. And you have jump scares. And so that's something that hits you as far as a sense is concerned. You think, oh, okay, well, that's cattle prod sort of horror. Now, cattle prod horror is basically something that's just jabbing you and you're jumping. You're shocked. For that split second, you're scared. But to me, that is a type of scare, but a genuine horror scare is that slow sense of anticipation, that wick that has been lit, and you know when it gets to the stick of dynamite, it's going to explode, it's going to be really bad. And so it's that slow progression and that hair on the back of your neck that is slowly standing up further and further. And because of that anticipation, it actually starts to get under your skin and it really creeps you out, and it really does get, it does get the fear and the pulse, the pulse rate going up and up. And not a lot of horror films do this, and that's a great shame because Roman Polanski and Alfred Hitchcock did it so brilliantly. But recently, horror has become an avenue for laziness. Is that, okay, just splash a bit of extreme gore and that will compensate for everything else that's missing. And horror has become an avenue for very lazy filmmakers. Just put boobs on the screen, decapitations, and that's a horror film. But ultimately, it's not a horror film. It's just a movie that is just definitely doing the horror genre a disservice. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of these movies that rely on these gore and nudity are slasher movies. And slasher films, okay, they are for an acquired taste, and they do have their place. I've said in the previous episode that slasher movies have put horror on the world map, is that people not necessarily a fan of horror know who horror slasher icons are. And so popcorn horror definitely has its place. But to be treated seriously, movies from Roman Polanski and Alfred Hitchcock really indicates what horror can be. And I definitely believe that Dead and Buried is an indication of that. It's an indication that not only the great directors, not only are they making great horror films, but lesser known directors can make great horror films when they truly concentrate. So when you actually push away the laziness and you actually genuinely have passion for the film you're creating, it shows you how good horror can be. And Dead and Buried is a clear example of why I am a horror fan. This is a film that does have a few nasty scenes, but it relies on that slow tension, that slow sense of anticipation. For anticipation to work, you need questions, and those questions need to be interesting is because it makes you want to go further and further. So you want to follow that wick up to the dynamite. If you don't have an interesting wick, you don't care if it explodes and you don't really want to follow it. But Gary Sherman does such a great job at creating a strong sense of mystery, and he's combining that with a whirlwind of very uncomfortable atmosphere. So it's through the visuals and just the slow sense of creepiness through the characters. The characters were very strange. And as I said, it's a zombie film, and it's definitely a different spin on the zombie film. And so it is giving you a little bit of creativity within a subgenre ever since George A. Romero created has become recycled, and it's basically just plagiarism. But this movie is so different, and I really like the avenues that this director took. Thought the acting was very good. The scenes of nastiness were very good. I thought it was there. It needs to be sort of the conclusion to the anticipation. So having a little bit of nastiness here and there is kind of that conclusion to that specific anticipation. But if you have excessive violence and it's thick and fast, you do become desensitized. But Gary Sherman, he doesn't allow the viewer to become desensitized. So it's kind of anticipating something really bad, and then something really bad will happen, and then it's another case of anticipation. And then when that sporadic violence happens, as I said, when the sporadic violence happens, it's that conclusion to those sets of anticipation. So it was just a very, very good horror film to me. I think it's very, very underrated. It was so much better than I thought it would be because atmospherically it is absolutely phenomenal. And so this is definitely one of my favourite older horror films, and I just can't believe I didn't check it out sooner. I can't believe that more people don't talk about it. And ultimately, the reason why I don't think people talk about it as much is because it's not shocking you so much with the visuals. It's just playing a very patient game of anticipation. So if that's for you, definitely check out Dead and Buried. I actually love this movie. I wasn't expecting to, and this is why I love the horror genre, because every now and then you do get films that understand what it is to genuinely creep out an audience. So this is a genuinely creepy film mixed in with some shocking acts of violence, and a conclusion that I thought was actually quite horrifying as well. So I love this movie, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you out there will as well. So check it out if you haven't done so. So definitely gets my nod of approval. So that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next episode, keep watching horror, and I'll see you later.